Hello ladies and gentlemen, in today's video I'm going to be reading out certain coping Sirene pullers who have a disgusting amount of sunk cost fallacy, trying to straw man my arguments and addressing that misinformation, right? So let's actually get into this. Starting off with someone who probably didn't watch my video, considering I addressed half these points in the same video. I don't regret Sirene at all. She's the only reason my Anoxa and my day can clear endgame for the past 4 or 5 patches. You could have just gone into vertical investment on different teammates for Anoxa or on my day's E1S1, and you'd still be clearing right now anyways, even if you didn't have Sirene. I know this because I have an E0 Anoxa on my main account, and I also have a E2S1 my day with the E2 being kinda useless, who has not used Sirene and cleared, right? We also have 3-team endgame now for all modes, so I'll just use the both of them. Another thing I addressed in this video was the 3-team endgame argument. It might have been viable when it was only M-Blade, but now that it's both M-Blade and Robin SP, you can easily get a third team who does not give a shit about Sirene and uses other supports or is niche like Elation or Break or Dot or yada yada yada, right? Next is, bruh, what has been going on with this guy lately? Okay, so now we're just insulting me instead of bringing up any points because we're not able to think for ourselves. Unfortunate. Next one is by Fanty. Almost 1 year later. Terrible pull. Aight, bro.
I swear, sometimes you just go so headstrong because you get so much pushback on your takes that even things that make no sense start to make sense to you. In 1 year, Blade and SP and Robin SP will be a terrible pull, by the way. Oh, no they won't, because they won't be tied to a single world like the Crisis Heirs. Oh, you mean like E1 Tribby, Lamau.
So, you guys might not have been able to fully understand that through the nerd voice, but this guy's basically trying to say that Tribby has aged just as badly, if not worse, than Sirene, which is absolutely just not the case, and also trying to say that 1 year later, when it has not been a year at all, and I've held this opinion since 4.2 with Blade's beta, which was only half a year later and before her first rerun. But even if you want to play this argument, and you want to use the age, the longevity you got out of the character, Tribby lasted significantly longer in this aspect, with Tribby actually having been released in 3.1, unlike Sirene's 3.7, and more usable in new DPS teams such as Himiko, with good synergy since she is an AoE DPS, and her synergy with the Ashblade comp since they can also appreciate her base kit and her E1, right? So even this argument that you are trying to use against me of like, oh, Tribby aged just as badly as Sirene, even if this were true, which it isn't, she is over 9 months older than Sirene. People already got the longevity out of Tribby that they were fucking looking for. So I don't really get what this point is at all. Stupid. And no, Blade SP and Robin SP will not be a terrible pull in a year, because the thing is, most people are going to own Blade SP and Robin SP, and unlike most previous supports who cap out at good investment with their E1, both Blade and Robin SP actually have their peak early investment at their E2s, with both the E1 and E2 being great, and likely allowing them to be contentious in the future with the version 5 Generalists as well. And keep in mind, unlike Sirene, these guys are released earlier on in the version, which automatically gives them more longevity than Sirene did, since she got power crept out of Mono Rem legit before her first rerun once again, right? I disagree. I use my Sirene to this day, and I don't use Elation at all because I don't care for the playstyle or characters. Cool, this has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that Sirene is going to nerf your teams and suddenly make them useless, or that she can't provide anything at all, simply that her value has diminished the quickest of any support I've ever seen in the history of this game. Next, but Gabimaru, all characters will be power crept and lose value. Yeah. What is this point? Oh, we're all gonna die someday, so who cares? Yeah, It's about how much longevity you actually get out of a character before they get power crept. Let me ask you this. Would you rather pull on a niche support who isn't good as a generalist in the slightest and only ends up being important for their niche for half a year before their first rerun? Or would you rather invest in a generalist like M-Blade or Robin SP who can be used on nearly every team in the game as a near best in slot or best in slot, have great E1 and E2 investment that further makes them even better in their teams, and they actually last as being this great a value for over a year to possibly a year and a half before they finally get power crept, right? That is a vast fucking difference in the strength of these two characters. I don't think I should really explain it further. At Gabimaru, if you value Generalists so much, could you explain why you are glazing Elation and not Doom posting it? I don't glaze Elation. Where is this even coming from? Because of my recent video where I said Elation was a good team to invest into? I mean, yeah, but I said the same thing for like Ashblade and as well as Himiko. I even talked about it in yesterday's stream, a short stream, where I talk about how Ashblade and Himiko are probably going to be the best team at low costs at clearing endgame content. And it's that Elation is more so going to be a mono-rem situation where everybody's going to have absolutely really great synergy, very tailored vertical investment to synergize with everyone. So when you go into higher cost investment for this team, then it'll actually start shining head and shoulders above the rest. However, at low costs, I am a believer that Himiko and Ashblade is actually better, especially when you think about it. Ashblade can get indirectly buffed in the future by just stronger generalist supports releasing as well. Or let's say a Fei Xiao Nova. Maybe we finally get a Fei Xiao Nova somewhere in version 5, because now there's no reason to sell this Fua comp anymore because it's already been a year. And then Fei Xiao Nova is now great with Ashblade as well. So Ashblade, in my opinion, is actually a pretty solid investment and one of the best, because they make it viable for you to pair them with anyone and it still clears, right? Like, you get that versatility of I can play with whoever I want on this team and they actually work, right? I don't regret E2ing her just for my E2 Phanon. Yeah, I've talked about this. I believe I've made videos about this before. E2 Sirene, legit the only person this E2 is worth pulling on, in my opinion, is for Phanon teams. And if you have an E2 Sirene with a Fae, congratulations, genuinely. I have no complaints. E2 Sirene with Fae is amazing. I myself have an E2 Sirene for my E6 Fae on my Fuwa account, right? I'm not saying that, like, you know, whatever, right? Not going to lie, I slightly regret pulling Sirene on her rerun. I do think I can use her for Memo Split at least. Yeah, if Pearl actually has healing, Memo Split is definitely like a possible thing where you do Cassie, M-Blade, Robin, SP, and Hyacine, because Cassie is more reliant on Hyacine than Evernight is. And then Evernight, RMC, Sirene, and, you know, Pearl, let's say here, right? Maybe Astra Yao. I have an inkling of a feeling that Astra Yao in the ZZZ collab might be a healing sustain. Right. So, yeah, if there comes a generalist sustain in the future with healing capability, then yes, it would be possible to do Memo Split finally, and I wouldn't hate on Sirene as hard, but it wouldn't change all that much, right? Like, still. And then by this point, I'd imagine her value is, like, way, way low because we're nearing version 5, right? I think you are wrong here. Sirene has aged a lot better than other 3.x units, like namely Ceridra. Brother, Ceridra is... Oh my god. Wow, we're comparing trash versus garbage here. And I think Yao Guang has a few more glaring issues. Oh my god, bro. Here we go. The Yao Guang's gonna get replaced, people. Oh my god. It's not gonna happen. Like, okay, I need to explain this because this happens a lot when casuals get, in my opinion, into meta discussion. While a team can have incredible synergy together, there is never going to be a team that has every teammate that is literally perfectly synergistic and undeniably a best in slot who can't get replaced, right? There is always going to be some flaws in these character kits so that they can, make Novas. They can sell Novas in the future, and they can sell new teammates for older teams that are starting to fall off. Yes, Yao Guang isn't a perfect character. 99% of people always bring up the fact that her generalist buffs are mid while completely ignoring her elation gimmicks that make her so strong for those teams. Right? Yao Guang is not getting kicked out for a fucking long ass time, and you people just need to drop this shit. It went from EMC is going to be better, Sparkle is going to be better, and now people are basically just hoping that Nihilux is possibly better, but then they're also now coming to the realization, even if Nihilux is better than Yao Guang, you just run them together on the same team with elation characters. Yao Guang, if she gets power crept, I promise you it is not going to be in this version. It is going to be in version 5, in which she would have already gotten significantly more longevity than Sirene did. So it's like, who really cares? Right? If you're talking about new version power creep, does this mean Robin SP will get power crept insanely fast? No. Once again, these Robin SP and M-Blade have these pluses where their E2s are also big jumps alongside their E1s, unlike Tribby and Robin, for example, where it was mainly their E1s that were carrying that early vertical investment for increasing their power level. So, in version 5, will there be new generalists who are stronger than Robin, SP, and M-Blade? Yeah, of course. But M-Blade is released in 4.3, Robin SP is released in 4.5, and once again, they both have good E1 and E2s to invest into that I'd imagine would still make them contentious with the V5 generalists at base, right? However, when you look at Sirene, she is not a generalist, so just automatically she doesn't have anywhere near the value of M-Blade and Robin to begin with. But also, she's been kicked out of half of her teams by these fucking generalists, which just hurts even more. And then there's also the fact that she was released even later than these two were in 3.7, which is what massively hurt her. Once again, M-Blade got his banner before Sirene got her first rerun, right? M-Blade. So this is what I'm talking about. Yes, this is once again the argument, everybody technically gets power crept, but there is a vast difference in a character who possibly gets power crept in, let's say, half a year versus a year and a half, right? Or a year. I just don't get what's so hard to understand about this. This just feels like a repeat of my video on Archer E1, where people with sunk cost fallacy into whatever they invested in, that's the topic of discussion, really get defensive about this shit. And now, at least finally, most people are accepting that Archer E1 is just utter shit if you have Rin on her team finally. There was some backlash at the beginning of the beta with my videos because I guess it was a little too early. Now people have kind of recognized it, and the only excuse people can use is, you can use a Huo skill every once in a while. Who the fuck gives a shit about a Huo skill? You're regenerating less than half of her energy. She needs 3 turns in order to actually hit her ultimate again without hit energy, and using one extra skill is not going to change all that much. And what happens when you finally get that ultimate? 20% more energy for the entire team. It's not bad, but it really is incredibly overhyped, and E1 Archer barely matters in his teams with Rin, right? So the same thing is kind of happening with Sirene right now. Because we're in a beta, people are getting defensive. They have the sunk cost fallacy. They're trying to deny things that just aren't true. They're trying to strawman my arguments. And then it's going to take until like 1 patch, 2 patches after the beta is finished for people to finally accept, yeah, Sirene was pretty dog shit of a pull, but I necessarily may not regret it because I like Sirene, or she's still good for one of these, worse teams like Aglaya, Maide, and Noxa. Like, you can say this, right? Like, you can admit a character is objectively a shit pull, and then they still have some value to you in some way. This is completely fine. I don't get why people need to cope about a character's value so fucking badly, right? Like, these characters do not know you. I don't know how to say this. Last comment here is, you know what? Yes, I'm specifically singling out this comment on purpose, Don't take this guy seriously. All his videos are just yapping. If you want real informative videos, go to someone like Waveman or other TCs that are actually doing TC. Admittedly, there are quite a few content creators out there who are better than me, because I do not do calcs and I do not edit my content, and that's pretty obvious. This is a big reason why I'm not as popular as others. If I actually edited my content the same as others, I'd probably be significantly larger. However, that aside, I have been more right than wrong with a majority of my predictions. And even when it is me going against other TCs on social media saying other things, I have held strong, and most of the time I have been correct. Of course, I'm not trying to say, oh, I'm a know-it-all. Obviously not. I've been wrong multiple times. I was wrong about Sunday staying in Anoxa teams. I was wrong about Ceredra's value kind of sucking in Phanon team. Well, no, it does suck. But, like, he has no other option, so she ended up being best in slot for no longer than I anticipated. What's the other one I was wrong about? Sparksy isn't as important of a best in slot sub DPS for Silverwolf Elation currently. With vertical investment, she is still best in slot, but like that's vertical investment. At base, she really isn't all that strong. However, I was right about Yao Guang. And then you have the examples of like Ashvale was getting incredibly overly doom posted by people after his nerfs, and I was one of the few people to say that he's actually still okay, and we shouldn't completely judge this character without their team being finished yet. And it's not like I only do this for Ashvale. I've been saying the same thing for Silverwolf, because everybody's taking their jabs at Silverwolf's meta place currently, despite the fact that her team isn't fucking finished and she's an Annie main DPS, meaning she's gonna get chilling, right? So it's not like this is a bias. Like, I was one of the few people to say Ashvale is still fine, and he's probably still going to age well when he gets his finalized team. And then you also have the entire Yao Guang thing. I mean, I was like one of the only people on this platform who was actively trying to convince and show people with proof, with the kit, with the numbers, with the practical gameplay, using certain things in AV, for Yao Guang, just to get it through people's heads that Yao Guang's importance in these Elation teams is way higher than most people would think. But no, people are going to agenda post that EMC is better, Sparkle is going to be better, she's going to get replaced later on by Nihilux, and it's just so dumb. And it's only now that people are coming to the realization that Yao Guang is that support, that character for the Elation teams, and all of them are reliant on her and really want her. So yeah, that's all this video is going to be. Sirene sunk cost fallacy is disgusting. I mean, sunk cost fallacy with anything in this game is disgusting. You'll get some crazy defensive people, right? Hey, listen, I've invested into an E6 Anoxa, one of the worst investments I've ever made, but I'm still happy, right? Because I like Anoxa. I wish more people would just be able to accept shit like this instead of trying to convince others that, oh, my character is objectively a good pull. Absolutely fucking not. Have a great day. Have a great night. Peace out.